I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And if you loved My Sister the Serial Killer the way I loved My Sister the Serial Killer, well, you're in for a treat. Oyinkan Braithwaite is the author of My Sister the Serial Killer, which, if you remember, took over the world in 2018, 2019, because no one had ever seen a book like this. It was snappy, it was poppy. Well, it was also a serial killer that we weren't fully prepared for, set in Lagos, no less. And it's really a story of two sisters more than it is about murder. So, there's a new novel, Cursed Daughters, and it's going to feel a little different on the surface, but at the same time, there's a lot burbling beneath that you're going to recognize. And I had a really, really good time reading Cursed Daughters. And I'm so happy to see you, Oyinko. And you and I have
Thank you
decided
for having me.
we're spoiler free in this conversation. So if we sound like we're dancing around stuff, yeah, we are.
Mm.
We totally are. I'm
Mhm.
so happy to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Miwa. I'm really excited to talk about this book with you.
Can we talk about the structure of Cursed Art? It's a bigger family story.
Mm.
It is generation after generation of women in this one family who have complicated lives. And I'm going to ask you to set it up because
Okay.
I love the structure of the book, and also this way we can leave out some of the details that I might decide to
Perfect.
include by accident.
It took me, it actually took me a long time to figure out how to set the story up because with my sister the serial killer I would be like, look, it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The
Yep.
two sisters, one of them is murdering people and the other one is supposed to just, clean up after her sister, and it was so easy. And then I got to this book and I started like tripping over myself, and I'd be like,
Mm.
okay, but there's this aunt who's, and it got really hectic, but I've had a bit of practice now.
Okay.
So I sort of usually start by setting up when the curse first began.
Yep.
And it began with this young woman who is beautiful and confident, and she's living in
Hmm.
this intimate village. And this man comes to the village, and she decides she likes this man. So one
Hmm.
night she sneaks into his room, and they have a passionate night together. And when he she leaves before he wakes up. So for him, it's a sort of fever dream.
Hmm.
But in the morning, he's about to leave, and this crowd comes to him, and they basically force him to marry this young woman. Unfortunately, he has a wife already,
Right.
a whole other life. And when the wife finds out about this, this new wife, she promptly curses our character, and the curse is that, well, she curses the character, she curses all the daughter's daughters, the every
Hmm.
woman that will come from the line. And the curse is that they will never be able to hold on to a man. They will love men, but they will love in vain. Men will be like water in their palms. And that's basically what the story is about this family of women
Hmm.
um, sort of contending with this curse. And we focus on three of the youngest women from
Hmm.
this family and how they deal with it and what it does to them.
You've written what could be described as a ghost story and a love story and a family saga. I mean, you're pulling from lots of different kinds of, I don't even want to say genre because it just sounds like you. I mean, one of the things that I loved, and I knew the book was coming. I knew what you'd been working on. I knew it was different from My
Mm,
Sister the Serial Killer. I knew the tone was different. Also, the way you handle time is different. I
mm,
mean, we go from what, 90, the mid 90s up until the present day. I mean, that's a
mm,
bigger swing, obviously, than
mm,
My Sister. And I was really curious to see where the shift would be. And you even said, and there's a note in the galley where you're like, well, I'm not the same person. Of course, it's not the
mm,
same book.
mhm,
And I want to start for a second with when you started working on Cursed Daughters and sort of how, because you always said the sisters came first. Like the sisters sort of showed up when you sat down to write My Sister the Serial Killer.
mhm.
And then there was also that little bit of uh, writer's block, but we'll come back to that. But Cursed Daughters, I mean, you've got this book behind you, worldwide sensation. there's a little bit of pressure. How do you follow that up?
It
But
was not a little bit, it was a lot of bit. It was
yeah,
it was a
yeah.
lot of pressure, and it
Hmm.
was terrifying because when I was writing My Sister the Serial Killer, I was
Hmm.
just this woman in her room and there was no noise, and
Hmm.
I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. And at the time, I wasn't planning on sending that work out to agents or publishers. So I didn't even have the pressure of, I wonder if a publisher would think this was good, or I wonder
Hmm.
if an agent, I didn't have to worry about any of that. But obviously, post My Sister the Serial Killer,
Hmm.
things were quite different. And when I was writing, I thought it was interesting that you said, not really talking about genre, because I wasn't thinking about genre when I was writing My
Right.
Sister the Serial Killer, but post My Sister the Serial Killer, I found
Hmm.
myself being defined as a crime writer a lot.
Right.
And
Which, no.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I was enjoying, like, crime festivals are so much fun, so you think, okay, is this the space I belong to? Is this what I am?
Mm.
Maybe it's not, but if I try something completely different, how will people feel about that? And how do I follow from the sort of
Mhm.
success that My Sister's Serial Killer experienced? If I don't do as well, if it's not longlisted or
Mhm.
shortlisted, does that therefore mean
Right.
I failed? Um, and it really, all these things, it made it, for a couple of years, it made it impossible to write. It made it really
Mm.
tough to write. And I had to push past that. I had to
Mhm.
sort of remind myself that um, I couldn't have imagined that My Sister's Serial Killer would be received in the way that it was. And because I just thought it was this weird, and surely nobody would be attracted to the weird in the same way that I was attracted to the weird. But it found its people, and
Mhm.
I had to just believe that whatever I wrote next would also find its people. And maybe
Mhm.
it wouldn't be the same people, but it would find the people who appreciated and loved it for what it was. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of how long it took me. But
Mhm.
as for what I was, where I was pregnant, I was married, my dad was dealing with a health diagnosis, and he was staying
Mhm.
with me and reminding me how long it had been since my sister's serial killer.
Mm.
So he kind of bullied me into writing another book.
Okay, go dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Go dad. But when I look at the two books side by side, Lagos and society in Lagos are a big part of what you're writing. I mean, you're coming at it from two different sides, right? We've got the heightened sort of fun and I don't want to say weirdness of My Sister the Serial Killer. I quite enjoyed this book and I love these
Mm.
women, even though, yeah, one of them's a little unhinged. Um, but settling into the world of Cursed Daughters, I felt like I had a map of Lagos,
Mm.
which I've never physically been to Lagos except
Mm.
through fiction and travel writing, what have you. Um, but would you walk us through sort of what this shared Lagos of your two novels feels like and looks like? I feel like you've been pointing out things. Sometimes it's a little dark, but sometimes it's also like here are the good points. Here's it's like any place, right? Like there's the good and the
Mm.
bad and everything else, and you put all of it
Mm.
into your sightlines when you're writing.
Yeah, I like to paint the Lagos I see and the Lagos I know. I feel
Hmm.
like it's um I always talk about how, like, America, or well, used to have fantastic PR.
Hmm.
And, when we were younger, we just kind of believed everything that we saw. And as far as like Africa and Nigeria, the PR has not been great.
Hmm.
It's not been,
Hmm.
most people can sort of, I think the majority of us have seen like those videos of, like, children with barely dressed, walking on the streets, begging,
Hmm.
needing water. And that's not to say that that doesn't exist, because it absolutely does.
Hmm.
But that's not all that Nigeria is. That's not all that Nigeria has to offer. And I think I just try to be true. I don't try to be kind. I don't try to be gentle. I just try to be true to the Nigeria that I know and I've
Hmm.
seen. And there will be someone who will. I also don't try to reflect the quote unquote full picture,
Right.
because even I've only been exposed to a certain type of Nigeria. and a certain type of Lagos. So to imagine, I don't try to imagine that I could ever do justice to it as a whole. But there will be another writer who will paint a different picture and another writer who will paint a different picture. So I only have to be responsible for the for my picture and what I choose to say. But as much as like I wrestle with the country and I wrestle with the politics and I wrestle with a lot of things, I also love Nigeria so much, and there's so much that's unique to Nigeria. There's so much vibrancy and color in Nigeria, and I think those are the sort of things that I'm excited to do justice to.
Well, and one of the things I really appreciate when I'm reading you is that even if I don't know, she loves her son. She really loves her
Yeah.
son. I am
Mm,
glad I'm not sitting across the table from her. I
mm,
don't think any of us would pass muster
mm,
for this woman. So, I mean, there are social markers that we would all recognize regardless of where you are. There
yeah.
are family markers. I mean, there's some aunties in this book where I'm like, okay. I mean, one of them you describe, you're like, well, the rest of the world sees her as the headmistress of a school, and she's very
Mm,
pulled together, and she's really got it
mm,
going on. But at the same time, she's also, she's got one foot in this
yeah.
sort of non-West. I don't like the phrase westernized, but in a more traditional medicine kind of situation, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
so the idea that these women, more so than the men, are having to code switch
mm,
constantly. There's who
mm,
you are at home and there's who you are in the world, but then there's who you are in the context of a conversation with a family member versus
mm,
in the context of a conversation with someone, well, that you would like to be a family member, but probably won't be. All of these layers and levels that I don't think are necessarily limited to one place. I mean, listen,
mm.
I could translate Boston for you. I mean, but a lot of this behavior strikes me as, bits and bobs that we would all recognize, regardless.
Mm,
You could be from Birmingham or Boston or whatever. It's just there is a humanity
mm.
to these folks. But who did you start with? Like, who showed up first, especially of the three main women? I mean, was that the starting point for you?
No, I started with like one and then
Okay.
built to two. I started with an E because the first thing that really interested me
Mm-hmm.
was the reincarnation. So,
Right.
NE, yeah, NE is supposed to be the reincarnation of Monifer, and everyone sort of believes that she's the reincarnation of
Mm-hmm.
Monifer, and but I hadn't really conceived of Monife yet. It was
Okay.
just what I was attracted to was, I think initially when I first sort of thought of the story, it was meant to be kind of like a coming of age story, but a coming of age
Yeah.
story with the burden of a whole other life, like sitting on top of your shoulders. Like it was just, that's kind of where it started, and I was
Yeah.
struggling with it. And then I started thinking about what it would be like to be the mother of a child who has apparently, you know, been here before, and you have to deal with all of that and the legacy and the fear and of the choices that were made
Right.
previously. So I actually started with an E, and then I kind of went backwards,
Uh-huh.
and then eventually I came to Monife because even though I suppose she had always been there, because if you've got a reincarnation, you've got the person that the individual has reincarnated from.
Right.
So she was always sort of there, but she was the last person that I kind of thought of.
There's a moment where Munifair has died,
Mm,
and her cousin Ibun is looking for her photo. She wants to go have a conversation with her cousin. She misses her cousin. They grew up together. They were as close as sisters. And it turns out the photos have been taken down by other members of the family.
mm,
And it's that kind of detail, though, that sort of stopped me short. And I was like, all right, what's going on here? Who
mm,
are these people? What is happening? I mean, you watch the aunties act out of love. Well, there are quite a lot of them, right?
yeah.
But they all have their own very distinct personalities. They're all very well intentioned, but they are kind of making a hash of, they're kind of making a mess of things because they're so well intentioned, but they're almost programmed in a way to
Mm,
put the family first or
mm,
social gestures first kind of thing, that they're not actually thinking about the individual people
mm,
in their
mm,
family, right? So how do you
mm.
build out this world? How do you build out this house, this community?
Gosh, I think on one level it's sort of easy for me because that's a culture that I'm familiar with, and with someone who I don't know how many times my parents would like reiterate over and over, family, family, family. And I'm the eldest, so it got to a point watching my youngest sister, even my brother sometimes make some decisions that aren't family oriented and
Yeah,
being like shocked that that there's this other reality that
right.
you mean you you put self first, and is that
Right.
okay? And
Hmm.
but of course it's okay, and it's really about finding that balance, but a lot of us fall one way or the other. And I guess because I'm in that, I'm constantly battling with that, it's sort of easy for me to draw on. But like you said, when you prioritize family, or you're forced to prioritize family to
Hmm.
that extent, often there's a lot of sacrifice that is made along the way, and maybe not all of it good, not all of it
Hmm.
beneficial.
Hmm.
And I'm surrounded, but I think a lot of people just doesn't matter if you're Nigerian or black or white or Asian,
Yeah.
whatever it is. We do a lot of things that are well intentioned,
Hmm.
whether those intentions lead to good is now a
Hmm.
different conversation. But often, most of us are well intentioned. We don't
Hmm.
mean for things to go the way that they go. And I think that's because it's rare to, even people we've classed as villains can sit down and justify their actions to
Right.
you. They are also well intentioned,
Right.
but whether what they're willing to do in order to achieve that intention is now where things get a little bit murky. So yeah, I think as far as that and creating these women, that's a lot of that is what I draw from.
Well, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, right? Isn't that the fun of
Yeah.
reading fiction? Like, the characters don't know what they don't know. You and
Mm,
I, as readers, don't know what we don't know. I mean, you've
mhm,
talked about your writing process being a process of discovery, right? You're like, I just
mm,
sit down, I see where it goes. I mean, I kind of love the idea that we get art out of not knowing anything, right?
mm,
That if there's no conflict, there's no art.
I was saying, I think for me, writing is a series of like happy accidents. And
Okay.
sometimes when you think about, I think like an abstract artist, and I'm like, there's no way every arc, every dot that is on this canvas, they
Hmm.
didn't plan for every dot. Like,
Yeah.
when they sort of like, when you see some of them do that flick, they kind of count
Yeah.
for everything that happens in that
Hmm.
flick. But at the end of it, what you have is something that you're drawn to, and then these conversations happen after the fact, and you're
Right.
like, "Ooh, what were you thinking when you did this?"
Right.
And then the artist comes up with something after the fact, because we rarely say, "Oh, it was just an accident." Some people
Right.
do, but and I think in this process, having conversation with you, or with the
Hmm.
with readers, sometimes I learn things about myself and what I've done after the fact. I didn't. There were some things I went out of my way to do, but
Hmm.
most things I either discovered along the way or
Hmm.
happened across and thought, this works.
Hmm.
This might work. There's an interesting detail, for example, about the dog
Hmm.
that was just born out of me having cornered myself and not really knowing how to get myself out of that corner, and then being
Right.
like, you know what? I think this is okay. I think it's fine.
What are some of the things you set out, although am I getting us into spoiler territory? What are some of the things that you set out to do intentionally in Cursed Daughters that you knew?
I think like with the women, I
Hmm.
wanted them to love each other. I also wanted them to hurt each other. I
Hmm.
think I had that in mind going into it. And I suppose, in a way, because I see Nigeria as, or not as a patriarchal society, but I also see it as a matriarchal society.
Hmm.
And, we have the society caters to men, but the women that are birthed or formed in this
Hmm.
society aren't weak women. I don't know
Hmm.
how one would define a weak woman. I'm not, but they're independent in a way that people might not think they are. They're
Hmm.
independent and hardworking, and you know, there I know of women who will be the ones holding their households up,
Hmm.
but they will never claim to be the ones holding their household up. They will give all the glory to their husband, but they're the ones who might be earning all the money,
Hmm.
putting the kids through school and still making all the meals. And I think I was trying to sort of do, again, just to do justice to that. I don't
Hmm.
often try to like have the answers as far
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
when I start writing. It's just something that I'm interested in, and I'm also trying to explore and find out, how do I feel about this, or why does this happen, or how do I want my characters to behave in this scenario, and
Hmm.
I just sort of hobble along.
Hobble along. That's not quite the image that would have come to mind for me, having read both of your novels, but okay.
Mm.
But going back to Cursed Daughters, I mean, you're cutting across time. Each of the three main narrators gets sort of an alternating chapter, and then you're also dropping in family history. We get a page of like, and this generation, this is how the curse played out, kind of thing.
Mm,
And you're really structurally, it's a little more involved than my sister was.
mm.
Um, and I'm wondering, are you writing this linearly, or are you just putting down what needs to be put down and then sort of going through and rebuilding it with edits and rewrites?
I started it in three separate
Okay.
chunks.
Okay.
And I started it that way because I thought that's how I was going to deliver it.
Hmm.
But it just wasn't working for
Hmm.
me. So at some point I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to have to, start chopping and seeing how they flow. And I was
Right.
still in the process of writing. I hadn't figured everything out, so I was still writing. So I started, okay, what should go where, and fleshing the story out as I went, and that felt much more organic.
Hmm.
And then the little family sort of history chapters were they almost felt like a separate thing completely, and
Yeah.
um it was a nice little break from the whole narrative for me.
Hmm.
And I remember like I was very close to I think we had gotten past like developmental like editing stage, and we were
Hmm.
getting to proofreading stage. And when you're in between those two stages, you're not allowed to do much.
Yep.
And I remember sending an email like begging, like, please. I just
Hmm.
thought of another one of these family history chapters, and I need to have it in there. So it wasn't, and I found a way to like shove it in.
Right.
So that was, again, it was something that it was a conversation I was having with my youngest sister, and she said something, and I was like, how is this not there? Um, so I wrote that chapter really quickly and
Hmm.
sent it off.
I really loved having the sort of details of each generational iteration of the
I'm
curse.
glad.
Um, in some ways, it reminded me a little bit of how you wrote My Sister the Serial Killer.
Mm,
Um, because I do feel like you're walking this very fine line in this book between tragedy and comedy. And there are moments where I have all of the compassion and empathy and sympathy for these women. And then there are other times where I'm like, I know I'm supposed to laugh at this and I'm going to do it. but I
Mm.
don't know if I'm going to feel bad after I laugh.
Mm.
Which is part of the fun of fiction, right? Like we get to
Mm.
be immersed in these worlds and also judge people's decisions. Or, I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on, well, once I get married, everything will be fine.
Mm.
And get married if that's what you want to do. Rock on. That's great. Go be married. I personally think the institution's a little outdated and weird and
Mm.
unnecessary, but that's me.
Mm.
But I love the idea that you've sort of snuck in this sort of, it's not really a marriage plot per se,
Mm.
but it's a little more universal than some people might. You
Yeah,
know what
I
I
think
mean?
I mean, I'm really interested in marriage, and I think
Hmm.
part of what I'm interested in is how transactional it can be
Right?
sometimes. So I'm like, I think when it's done right,
Hmm.
whatever that looks like, it can
Yeah.
be beautiful,
Right.
but I feel like it's rarely it's also like the perfect atmosphere. And that's why you have so many books
Right.
attacking because it's the perfect atmosphere for when things go wrong. Um, and how people decide to, address the things that are going wrong or
Mm.
deal with things that are going wrong or how things go wrong in a marriage. But like again, I've heard a lot of hinky stories over the course of my life. And it almost, you have these questions. Why did these people choose each other or enter into this marriage? What were they looking for? Were no conversations had?
Hmm.
And I completely, you know, I can completely sort of understand like so sometimes I hear about things that have gone on in a marriage and I think, how does the man sleep next to the woman at night and not be afraid? Like that's really, you're hurting the person who has the most access to you
Right.
and the most, they know what you're allergic to. Hey, they know your routine. I just wouldn't take those kind of risks. So I think I just find the institution really interesting. I mean, I'm happily married, knock
Hmm.
wood. Hopefully, I stay happily married, but
Right.
um, I've always just found it really interesting. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of in this book. There's that sense that okay, if I get married,
Hmm.
things will be fine, and
Right.
it's that happily ever after idea. And of course, that's not real
Mm.
life. Life goes on after the ring is put on your finger or whatever. It goes on.
Well, and the whole idea too that the curse is you will never keep a man.
Mm,
I mean, that's that, and it reverberates through generation after generation after generation. And watching how each of our three women sort of take it on and think, well, it's not going to be me anymore.
mm,
I'm going to break the curse. I'm going to break the curse. And watching them sort of, I mean, you could argue they're all coming of age, right? Like a coming of age
mm.
story doesn't have to be limited to a teenager, getting their driver's
Mm,
license
yeah,
and
that's an interesting concept. Yeah.
right? Like I do feel like watching them, each of these women come to terms
With the
with
yeah,
what
what they
their
thought
situ
their life would be
right?
versus what it is, how they adjust.
Hmm.
Mm,
And what they're told their lives should be. Right.
mm,
So whether it's the family or the greater society
mm,
or how they've interpreted things,
mm.
that to me is the fun
Yeah,
of this book.
actually, I remember I saw a review. I try not to read them, but
Yeah.
sometimes I cave. And I saw a review, and it was basically like, why are these women so obsessed with like marriage and men and I think that in my, the way I look at it,
Hmm.
especially in the society that they're in,
Hmm.
marriage equates to stability.
Yeah.
It's actually not always about love or,
Hmm.
about having a man by your side. It's about stability. Actually, what these women are seeking is stability. And this is what you were saying about what the society expects. I've
Hmm.
had conversations with people who are like, and even men, actually, I've
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
some conversations with men where they're like, I feel like I got the promotion because I was now a married man.
Yeah.
Like I now had that respectability coat on me,
Hmm. Hmm.
or they will ask you, and I think, to be honest, I think this happens in a lot of places where they might expect you to stay longer in the office because, oh, you're not married or you don't have kids,
Right.
um, and somehow your life is less, I don't know what the word, worthy, or I don't know
It.
the word to use, but because you don't have the spouse or the kids, or um and so I think it's not really about
Hmm.
women being like obsessed with men. It's about women trying to gain
Right.
stability and you know um a solid foundation, and trying to keep their family and their home together.
It's also this weird symbol of adulthood. It's
Mm.
it's this weird marker where it's like, well, of course you're an adult now, you're married, and I'm just thinking, we've all met those people where you're like, oh, honey, no, please don't do that.
The
Like,
thing about I think, when I was younger,
hmm,
of which, like, I wanted to have long flowing hair.
right,
And I thought that, like, I was reading so many classic novels. I thought
hmm,
that I'd be married by like age 21, and
right.
because age 40, by then you're dead. But
No, it's true.
I was sort of obsessed with, but you
Right.
just take it for granted. You graduate, at least in my culture, you go to university, you graduate, you marry, you have kids.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the graduation thing, and eventually, because my mom was kind of starting to panic, marrying.
Hmm.
But then I got to the kids part, and I thought, wait, hang on a minute. I don't even know if I want,
Right. Right.
and eventually I did, eventually we waited a few years and we did decide to have a child. But I know that, as blessed as I feel and as much as I love her,
Hmm.
there was an element of like, I wasn't sure if I would regret not having,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you're like, this is a harder thing to reverse than it is to, I knew I would love whatever,
Right.
whoever I'd love my child. I had no
Right.
question about that. But would I love 20 years from now, would I love
Yeah.
not having a child? So it wasn't that I never got like baby crazy. I was never like, I need to have. I never had that feeling that I
Right.
hear some people have, but there was like some reasoning there when you might regret not, but part of it is that societal expectation. You've just been told all your life you're gonna do ABC, and so you do ABC.
And hit those marks
Mm,
and hit them willingly, and watching your characters navigate, right? And this is both books. This is both books where all of
mm,
the women are kind of like, yeah, I'm supposed to do a thing.
mm.
But and you
Yeah.
mentioned reading a lot of classical literature when you were younger, and there was something I stumbled on when I was putting together my notes for this show. You were talking about how Wuthering Heights was a bit of an influence on My Sister, the Serial Killer, because you were like, well, it's narrated from the point of view of people who don't really have any skin in the
Yeah.
game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's how we get
Mm,
where she's not exactly passive in her voice, but she doesn't get overly emotional when she's describing how she's helping her
mm,
sister. And
mm,
it's a device that I loved, and
mm.
it kept me really invested in how things sorted out. And I'm wondering, if is there something like that for Cursed Daughters as well? Is there a book that you were sort of thinking about
Yeah,
in the
I
back of
thought
your brain?
about, I haven't read it in a long time, but I
Hmm.
remember just trying to imitate the vibe a bit of Rebecca,
Oh yeah.
by Daphne du Maurier. I had
Yep.
that in mind. I was also really influenced by this spoken word piece by a Nigerian poet called Titilopa Shonuga. Is that
Yep.
Shonuga? Shonuga. And her poem is titled Swim. And it's
Okay.
just, I listened to it, I don't even know how many years ago now. And
Hmm.
I remember listening to it and thinking, I've got to write about water. Like, it just, I connected with the piece so much. And I think
Hmm.
it's about, that piece is a coming of age piece. But it's such a compelling piece, and it really made an impression. So again, I haven't
Hmm.
gone back to it in
Right.
years, but I just remembered the feeling that it gave me.
Rebecca is also sort of the idea behind this other novel called The Safekeep, by Yael
Mm.
van der Wouden, which is just, it's great. Like the spirit of the thing is there. It's so good. It's so good. Do you have time to read other people when you're, I mean, probably not when you're working, but like,
I do. I try, like I had a barren period when it came
right.
to reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was post My Sister the Serial Killer. There was a
Yeah.
while where I was struggling with reading and writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of back in that being really excited. And also there was a period of time where I was sent stuff to read a lot. I'm still
Yeah.
sent stuff to read, but now I've kind of I'm insisting on finding my own, because it can just start to feel very academic
Mm-hmm.
if you're, reading to review or reading to judge or reading to
Mm-hmm.
blurb
Yep.
or, constantly, and you forget how much you just like to cozy and read and
Yeah.
then not needing to do anything with it at the end of that. And to love it or hate it however you wanted to without
Yeah.
expectation. So I absolutely am reading other,
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Um, what are you reading for first, though? Are you reading for character? Are you reading for story? Are you reading for language or alternately voice? I mean, language and voice to me are sort of, I use them
Yeah, I
interchangeably.
think language and voice, because there's when you open the page and you start reading it and you're like, yeah, this person has got me.
Right?
I'm in good hands. I'm in good hands. I don't know. I'm reading Kafka on the Shore at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea what's going on, but it doesn't matter because I'm having a good time. Like I don't know. I don't know. I hear you I might never find out what's going on, but um I'm loving, the experience. So,
I don't need things to happen in books as much as I need great sentences. Like, I'll forgive,
mm.
I don't need to like the characters. I don't
Mm.
need, but
Yeah.
I can't buy into the world, right? And
Mm.
we've sort of let world building get co-opted by genre fiction, and it's much bigger than that. Like any novel has to build a world, right?
Mm.
Even if you're sitting at the kitchen table in someone's suburban house, whether it's in the UK or the US or whatever,
Mm.
you're still building a world. You are physically
Mm.
constructing something that either I'm going to walk through
Yeah,
the
I've
door and
never thought of you're,
stay.
you're right. I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you it's something you do really really well and really differently in both books, right? Like there's a little more staccato language in My Sister the Serial. This it's a little more stripped down.
Mm.
It's not affectless. That is not the word I would use, but like watching the women interact, but like the way you handle beauty standards of beauty, right? In My Sister the Serial Killer, like that's a big piece of the subtext
Mm.
of this novel that is not quite
Mm.
about murder and crime, but kind of is. But it's really more
Yeah.
about the sisters. It's
Yeah.
really more about the sisters. And
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's really subversive and fun and interesting, but you have built a world that I have totally bought into.
Thank
Um,
you.
and if you haven't read it, please just go. It's a really fast read.
Yeah,
You
it's
can do it in an
small. It won't take you any
afternoon.
time. You can read it in one sitting if you're fast enough.
The first time I read it, I did do it in the first sitting and
Oh,
in a
cool.
single sitting.
Yeah.
I love that. I love a short, tightly written novel that just,
Mm.
I mean, I also read really quickly. Not in a I'm rushing kind of way. I just read really quickly. And if I'm in the language, then I'm
Mm.
really in the language.
Mm.
And I will say Cursed Daughters is longer, but the chapters are very short. The
Mm.
pacing is still the pacing reminds me of My Sister the Serial Killer.
Mm.
But I didn't this was not a single sitting for me
Mm. Yeah.
because I wanted to spend time with everyone. I needed to raise an eyebrow at some auntie. There is a universal auntie code. Like, can we just agree that there is
There is.
universal auntie code? It
Yes,
doesn't
yes, yes.
matter where you're from or what your
Mm.
background is.
Mm.
Everyone has auntie culture, auntie code. Like, some of us. Okay, listen. I have elderly aunts who have been dead for a really long time, and they can still like every now and again you just get that vibe where you're like, oh no, Aunt Jenna would not approve. Aunt Jenna would
Yeah.
just not approve. And I do it anyway, but I do have a moment of,
Mm.
my Japanese grandmother. There are definitely times where I'm like, oh yeah, she would not be doing this. And I
Yeah.
do it anyway. But it makes me laugh that we can
Mm.
share this across like so many different experiences, right? Like
Mm.
it's You've got some aunties and cursed daughters, my friend. You've got some aunties in there where I'm like, oh, I have
Yeah,
shared
I
I have
mean,
shared a table with you.
I think like I was talking to actually my publicist the other day and I was telling
Hmm.
her some things about my family, just random stuff, just to paint a picture for her.
Yeah,
And like, I was basically like, they're so invasive.
yeah. Hmm.
And, so I told her one or two things and she was like, this is interesting. That would I say that I'm closer to them
Right.
because of how invasive they
Hmm.
are. And I would absolutely say I'm closer to them because they force themselves on you and they force their opinions on you. But
Hmm.
I also know how much they care. And, like you said, sometimes you might not do the thing
Right.
or whatever, or I like my space. I like being
Yeah.
left alone. Sometimes the invasiveness is a lot, but um, the aunts who aren't invasive, I also don't have as
Right.
much of a connection with them. So it's a weird, but yeah.
I also just think it's part and parcel of the family culture, right? It's
Mm,
a larger social culture. It's also
mm,
family culture. I mean, you can either let it run you or which, you could
it,
argue I still let it run me when I say things like, and then
it,
I just go and do what I'm going to do anyway.
yeah,
I mean,
it's tough to shake that kind of, but yeah, like you say, you can let it run you, you can rebel against you. You have options.
right.
There are options.
But the fun
But
is
yeah,
figuring
I
out.
can kind of I have a lot of fun laughing at
Hmm.
it, at them, at myself.
Right.
And that's kind of how I'm like, this is ridiculous, but it's okay.
And that really is the fun of reading you, even when you're dealing with things like the patriarchy. Like this stuff can still, we
Yeah.
can ask big questions and kick the tires on social ills wherever we are, but
Mm,
we can still have fun doing it. And I
mm,
do think the women, I I'm thinking of the scene in The Hairdressers, right?
mm,
Where everyone is really, really uncomfortable, and yet it's still kind of funny because really it works. It just
mm.
that particular scene really, really works, and I'm trying not to spoil a thing, but it's also the way you bring characters who might not otherwise have met. And I
Mm.
will say you bring a couple of storylines together, not exactly at the end, but as we're coming to the end, where I realized, let's just say someone walked into a kitchen, and I was like, oh, hi. Um, and it's not that I didn't expect that kind of resolution. It's not that at all. It was just such a delight
Mm,
to see it all come together the way it did
mm.
happen. And again, there is some darkness, absolutely.
Yeah.
But um I think you need both, right? Like we can't
I
you
think it's life. I think
yeah,
it's life.
exactly.
I mean, life is too short to cry all the time, for starters. But also, I think a lot of us use humor to sort of,
Hmm.
and sometimes acknowledging that the tragic and the comedic can
Right.
be two sides of the same coin. So I'm rarely ever trying to be funny. But I think sometimes I'm like, this is, can you guys see how weird this is with me? Can we all acknowledge that this is weird? And I think that's where it might not, because everybody does agree. Yeah, we're like, yeah, it is weird. We all agree it's weird together.
You do it a lot with dialogue. You do it a lot with like getting the details right. I'm thinking of a couple of conversations that popped in the novel, and um, especially with one of the boys.
It's so hard not to do
I know,
spoiler
but
free.
I'm just
We
thinking.
promise spoiler free and we're struggling.
Yeah, we are struggling a
Like,
little bit,
how
but
do
I
we
mean,
talk about?
I, I'm just thinking about Golden Boy for a second,
Yeah.
and he's having a conversation with Mona Fey, and he doesn't understand that he has said some very stupid things.
Mm,
Right? You know the conversation I'm talking about. Like
mm,
he's just like, "But I love you. You're great. Everything's
mm,
fine." And she's like,
mm,
"Dude, what?" I mean,
mm.
really the undertone is, "Dude, what?" And but he's being his Labrador golden retriever self where he's just like,
Yeah.
"Hi, the world is great. I
Yeah.
love you. That should be enough." And she's like, "Well, actually," right?
Yeah.
It's
They
that
live in very different, she's lived a very different life
Yeah.
and has very different challenges, things that
Mm-hmm.
he could never
Right.
understand. But yeah, I enjoyed Golden Boy a lot as a
Mm-hmm.
character. And, you know, I think when you're writing that sort of thing, you have to be able to fall in love with the character a little bit
Yeah.
so that your protagonist can fall in love with
Yeah.
him and hopefully the reader can fall in love with him. So I was like, Golden Boy has a special place in my heart.
I also love the fact that he's very well intentioned.
Mm,
He's not, is he the best dude? Not really. Is he a
mm,
product of his environment and his family? Absolutely.
mm,
But he's not a bad dude.
mm,
And I think we meet other characters too who are not, everyone's well intentioned, but
mm,
we're messy. I mean,
mm,
we are messy as people,
mm,
and your
mm.
characters are messy, and it's a delight to. Yeah, I really loved Cursed Daughters. I had a really good
Thank
time
you
with
so
this
much,
book.
Miwa.
Have you started working on the next thing though? I mean, you took a
Um,
minute, obviously, with My Sister the Serial
Yeah,
Killer doing
I
all of those
took
things,
a
but
minute. I'm hoping it will be quite as long
okay,
in the next one.
okay,
But I've not yet decided like which way to go. There are a couple of stories that I want to do, I think, but I'm sort of really bad at finish. Like I'll start 100 stories and finish one out of the 100. So we'll see how it goes.
okay, fair enough. Okay, I like the idea that you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new ideas and you're just sort of noodling around and finding the one. So
Yeah.
I will sit here quietly and be patient and wait for the next thing to come. In the
Thank
meantime, for listeners who have not read My Sister the Serial Killer, you really, really should, and it's in paperback. But Cursed Daughters is just, it's, yeah, it's a really excellent reading experience. So, Oyinkan Braithwaite, thank you so much for joining us on Port Over. This has been so much fun.
thank you for having me, Miwa.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.